We'll be kicking things off in 5 minutes, so if you could start to find your seat, that'd be wonderful. We're kicking things off, and now it's 4 minutes. 4 minutes until we begin this morning's program. We're just 1 minute out until we'll begin the program. So if you have any seats available at your table, raise your hand so that your fellows can come up and join you and we can fill the tables. I see some over here to the right as you're walking in, some availability to the left by this window. Great viewpoint here. We're going to start momentarily, so please take your seats so we can begin the program. Thank you so much. And anybody who's out in the lobby, please make yourself, bring yourself in, and if there's an empty seat at your table, feel free to raise your hand so that people can join you. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning to everyone. Welcome to this session of the Aspen Action Forum. My name is Ricardo Rivera Cardona. I am a Health Innovators Fellow and the Chief Business Development Officer for Somos Community Care. Somos is a network of more than 2,500 physicians serving more than 650,000 people in New York City. I am currently working with them to transition from a fee-for-service system into a value-based payment system. And my action pledge is to improve the quality of healthcare for 150,000 people living in vulnerable and underserved communities in New York City by 2021. Thank you.
My name is Muna Abu Sulaiman. I'm a MELI Fellow. I'm the co-founder of Adri Platform, and my newest venture is about providing knowledge for students. For too long, educational initiatives have been concentrating on providing the basics of learning for the world's most disadvantaged youth. At Adri, our action pledge is to help 100,000 high school and college students learn in their own language the most updated academic knowledge. This is the only way to lift them out of poverty and make them globally competitive. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lynette Chen, and I am from the African Leadership Initiative Fellow from South Africa. I was previously the CEO of the NEPAD Business Foundation, where we mobilize private sector to work in partnership with government and civil society to implement development programs across Africa. My action pledge is to create business ownership opportunities for 500 entrepreneurs in Southern Africa through technology in mobile kiosks in the retail sector. This will be done by combining the fourth industrial revolution with entrepreneurship. Will be done by establishing e-mobile kiosks in office parks, which will provide consumer goods and products to the people working in those office parks. I believe that by using technology innovations in entrepreneurship will be the key to creating a sustainable economy in Africa. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Robb O'Hagan. I'm a proud Amerikiwi, and a Henry Crown Fellow from the Straight Outta Aspen class. Are we here? Woo! I'm the founder, author, and chief extremer of Extreme Living, an organization dedicated to fighting participation trophy culture, helping young people learn to take risks, get out of their comfort zone, post ugly pictures on Instagram, and fail gloriously on the way to unleashing their extreme potential. My action pledge is to provide coaching and connection to 1,000 aspiring young leaders of diverse backgrounds who wouldn't usually have the means and alumni networks to get a foot in the door, to help them discover career opportunities around the world that unleash their full potential by the end of 2025. Thank you.
My name is Suzanne Beagle. I'm a Cato Fellow and Chief Catalyst at Catalyst at Large. I'm an investor and a systems change entrepreneur. My action pledge was to mobilize 1,000 investors, globally, institutional and individual, to move more money more strategically with more velocity with a gender lens by 2020. The value of diversity and the business and social imperative to close the gender gap is well known within this community. But while talent may be equally distributed, capital is not. This is one of the keys to solving every issue that we care about as a community, for creating more resiliency and sustainability and more opportunity. In 2017, when I made this pledge, I was aiming to move or influence $1 billion of capital by 2020. This is now past 10 billion. But we've only just begun. I challenge and I invite you to join me and other Aspen Fellows that are shifting capital in a gender-smart way to create a better world for all of us. Thank you.
My name is J.B. Schramm, and I'm a Pahara agitator. My action pledge is to help develop 10 million more career-ready Americans by 2025. There are seismic shifts taking place in the nature of work. Researchers estimate that automation will eliminate low-wage jobs at 20 times the rate of high-wage jobs. Yet investments in the market to accelerate automation are dwarfing the investments to prepare workers to deal with and succeed through those changes. That's why New Profit is partnering with Strada, Walmart, Marriott, Lumina, and the Beacon Fund to launch the Future of Work X Prize, a global competition to incentivize innovators from AI, behavioral psychology, workforce development, to help workers develop the particularly human skills that complement machines. So help us find the innovators and the employers who can help workers succeed in the future workforce.
My name is Helen Hai. I'm a China Fellow, a UN Goodwill Ambassador. I'm also the CEO of Binance Blockchain Charity Foundation. Binance is today's world's largest crypto exchange, and my action pledge is to use blockchain technology to support economic transformation for the bottom billion people in Africa by 2025. In the past 6 months, we have already developed, using blockchain technology, a transparent donation system which more than 100,000 girls, schoolgirls, has been impacted through donations in their sanitary pads and also in their school lunches. I look forward to working with all of you to move from vision to action, dreams to reality. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Shadia Anousheh. I'm a Henry Crown Fellow and co-founder of the Middle East Leadership Initiative. My action pledge is to introduce Anousheh Ansari, who's our keynote speaker, and I to do it in the best way possible. So the session today is about leadership beyond borders, and who better than Anousheh Ansari to come and talk to us about that. Anousheh is the CEO of X Prize, an organization that pushes boundaries and borders every day through their competitions. She's also the first commercial female astronaut from the Middle East to have visited the International Space Station. not only pushing boundaries for science, but pushing boundaries for women and for Middle Eastern women as well. She's going to be talking to us about two boundaries that are close to her heart, the boundary between Earth and space, and the boundary between artificial intelligence and human intelligence. Anousheh is a Middle East Leadership Initiative Fellow from Iran and from the US, a very dear friend. She has followed her dreams and passions all the time, and she inspires so many, including me. What she has shared to me just before she went up on stage, that in the last 9 months of her life, she has felt most energized as she has ever had. And when Anousheh is energized, this means trouble. And when trouble comes from Anousheh, it's an amazing change for the world. Thank you very much, and please welcome Anousheh Ansari.
It's awesome to be here with all of you and share my story with you and talk about some of the work I'm doing that makes me so excited about XPRIZE and the work we're doing in the world. I was born a long, long time ago in a country far, far away in Iran, as you heard. And growing up, I had my head in the skies. I loved the stars. I loved sleeping outside summer nights and just letting my imagination go wild by looking at those beautiful, shiny objects and to transform me to these other imaginary places where I could imagine a world where things would work the way I wanted them to work, where I could have all the chocolate I wanted and no one would tell me to go to bed early. And no matter what I wanted to do, I was able to do it. But that dream and that sort of desire to go to space and be an astronaut continued building my life, made me interested in math and science and studying engineering later on in life and also astronomy. Even when I was 7 years old, I knew this is what I would do. So I drew it up in a nice picture, and I went around to show it to all of our family members. And I can imagine they looked at it and they imagined that, you know, this is something that I would grow out of. You know, I'm in Iran, there's no space program. What are the chances of this young girl actually going to space? And I like to prove people wrong. So here's what I did. This is my rocket. I had to make sure that I ride on a rocket that resembles my drawing. So this is actually... But this is the power of imagination. This is the gift we have as human beings. We imagine it and build it. We imagine things that do not exist. We invent them. We build cities that are just a figment of imagination when they start, and we build them. So this is something that as children we've learned to use a lot. We don't even realize we're using it. But when we grow older and we become practical adults, we sort of forget about it. And that's the mistake we make. Imagination is a spark of an idea, something that perhaps, you know, we're outside and we see something. We're here at Aspen Action Forum and we see something, or something we watch on TV. I loved reading science fiction books and imagining those worlds. And I was part of those characters, you know. And soon enough, you watch them and you read them, you sort of become them. You know, sometimes you need props, of course, but, you know, not always. But growing up, I thought that there will be, I loved Star Trek, I was a Trekkie, and I thought there will be a federation and there will be a Starfleet Academy, and I can go apply and become a science officer and fly all over the place, explore the universe, and be a science officer on board Starship Enterprise. Well, of course, you know, I came to US, I was 16 years old, I didn't speak English, and I was searching for this, you know, Starfleet Academy in the yellow pages, and there were, you know, no Starfleet Academies. I was shocked. But, you know, 50 years ago, just last weekend, humans stepped on the moon. And a lot of things have changed, but not fast enough in the space program. So as a young person who came here with this dream, I realized that my dream is very unlikely to come true through the traditional means of, you know, trying to apply for being an astronaut through NASA and flying through the government space program. So a long story short, since I don't have time, through entrepreneurship and the work that I did as a tech entrepreneur, I was able to take time off and go back and try to see what I can do to change that. Because I know I'm not the only one who has this dream, and there are millions out there. And just waiting for governments to fulfill that dream of one day everyone can go to space is not going to happen by itself. As a tech entrepreneur, I had seen how fast technology moved in our business, in telecom and data sciences and internet. But in space, it was moving at a slow pace. So I had the good fortune of coming across someone named Peter Diamandis, who's the founder of X Prize Foundation. And he shared his dream of starting a competition to open up space for everyone and commercialize it and democratize it. And to me, as an entrepreneur, it made sense. Why wouldn't anyone do this? You have a prize. You only pay to someone who actually built a spaceship and can go to space. What's the risk there? What could go wrong? Well, of course, he had knocked on 150 other doors, and all the CEOs and big corporations had told him that he's crazy, he's going to get people killed, and this will never happen. And of course, we as a family stepped up and said, we're going to do it. We're entrepreneurs, we're risk takers, we're going to do it. And now X Prize Foundation has flourished from not only opening the space program and making it possible for a new industry to be created, but looking at all the grand challenges in the world. Since then, we have launched 11 prizes, $150 million worth of prizes in the healthcare, in oceans and the health of the ocean, in environment, energy, in building new ways of teaching people in education. We have a global learning prize that we awarded this year. We tested it for 15 months in Tanzania. 5 teams all demonstrated extraordinary results. Kids were learning just by 2 hours a week, equivalent of a whole year of schooling. And these are kids that in Tanzania didn't even have any schools around them. We've launched and awarded Adult Learning X Prize, which teaches adults with very low literacy levels how they can elevate their learning and therefore their economic status. We have awarded our Ocean Discovery X Prize, where the advanced mapping technologies have been advanced so much that we can now map the entire ocean floor in 3 years versus 100 years that it would have taken with technology before the prize. So we're pushing boundaries and borders everywhere. I heard in the opening remarks Dan mentioned that this group needs to think big and think audacious goals. Well, this is what we do every day. That's what we talk about every day at X Prize, and that's why these past 9 months have been some of the most fulfilling time of my life. We have 8 prizes that we're launching to address the climate change, to address food and nutrition, health and longevity, reforestation, coral regeneration, health of our oceans, and exploration. So all of these things happens because we have an amazing team that believes that we don't have all the answers, but the crowd out there has the answers. We just need to frame the problem in a way that they can understand what they need to solve, and a big prize out there that they can win if and when they solve that prize. And that's what we do at X Prize. You actually heard that we're partnering with New Profit in launching the future of work, and that's one of the prizes that we're very, very excited to launch. But when I was in space, we're talking about boundaries and crossing borders. I crossed many borders to come to the United States, and personal borders, physical borders, and it has been constantly changing. When I went to space, there was another big barrier I crossed, another big border I crossed. And being able to look at out the window of the space station and look at our planet, I was able to realize that all the things I had learned in schools, where they showed me a map like this with lines and colors separating us, was not real. It was something that I was taught that it was completely false. This was what I saw. This is our world. This is our planet. You don't see any lines. You don't see any borders. There is nothing that divides us. It's all in our head. And if we can see the world through this lens, I realized that it's transformational. It transformed me. It transforms all the astronauts, anyone who's able to experience it. And that's why it's important for us to be able to transcend our normal understanding of our world and be able to see our world for what it really is, which is this. There are other boundaries and borders that we cross all the time at XPRIZE. And it's at the core of the work we do because we believe technology, and especially exponential technology, can really help us advance humanity toward a world of abundance for all. And that's the borders between digital and physical. We talk about AI and machine learning and robotics. These are things that has happened now maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, so these are not new. We've seen how the border between human and machine is changing, where you have humans and machines cooperating, collaborating. We've seen how robotics can help everyone that needs to advance something, whether it's a physical ability that they've lost or a mental capability that they've lost, how they can use machines to regain them. It has advanced further where some of these technologies are bringing artificial intelligence with the mechanical part of the technology and implanting them into our physical bodies. So before the barrier was the machine was outside and the human was, there was a barrier between us. Now those barriers are blurring. The machines are going inside our bodies to help solve some of the problems. Well, we can always use them for good, but we can always use them for other things. You know, military uses of technology is always there. But we can't stop at not developing technologies because there could be used for something that's not good for humanity. We just need to be cognizant of it. This is an announcement that was recently made. DARPA has advanced a lot of technologies that has helped humanity. Right now, they're working on AI and human brain interfaces that can control things. Of course, this can help people who've lost their abilities, but it can also have great, as you can see, uses for military uses. We've seen how we have gained capabilities to actually manipulate our genome. Recently, there was a lot of controversy around China and the work they've done with modifying a human child embryo. And this is something that, as they said, the cat is out of the bag, and it's not something you can undo. And technology is something that we can't shy away from it because then it will be developed in dark corners, and it won't be stopped. But the same technology that China, for example, said they can use to customize, modify us to be maybe better human beings can be used again in ways to give us abilities that we're not supposed to have. This was my excuse to put a shirtless picture of Wolverine on the screen. We've used AI in space. I have to talk about space because that's where my passion is. We've used AI in space to help us explore the cosmos and to find planetary-like planets, Earth-like planets out there where, in case we want to travel and explore the universe, we have places that we can go and settle. I don't know if anyone recognizes this. Anyone recognizes this? HAL 9000? So AI, in science fiction, AI has always been something that was imagined to be part of the space program. Well, we have our own version of it now on the space station. This is Simon. He doesn't like to be called HAL, but he's helping astronauts in space station right now and helping them perform tasks. There are other boundaries we're blurring. So we talked about machines, talking to machines, human and machines collaborating, machines inside of humans. But now we can also, by implanting chips inside the brain, connect human brains together. And these are a lot of experiments that have recently started to create hive-like behavior, where right now it's just human brains connecting, but then you can put a machine in the mix, and it can really augment our capabilities as human beings. Now, Elon made a reference to us having to become cyborgs in the future in order to survive and be able to surpass the intelligence of the machines. But I don't know if that's the life I want to live. To be Borg, I don't know. Jean-Luc Picard didn't like it that much, so I trust his judgments in that. But it's happening. The reason I'm saying all of this is it's not science fiction anymore. I'm sure when we watched Star Trek and we saw the Borg, we're like, this is not going to happen in our lifetime. But it's happening faster than we can even understand it. Just recently, there was a huge announcement about, we've been growing organs for a while now. And nobody thought about it in any way that this is an organ that may have feelings and be sentient. Now we're growing brain tissue, and there's demonstrating electrical patterns that resembles embryo. So now there's ethical questions about, well, is this brain sentient? Is it alive? How do we deal with it? We're not equipped to deal with some of these questions. So these lines are blurred all the time. And that's why I'm so excited about forums like Aspen Forum, where people can talk about these difficult questions.
Deadly earthquake, a suicide bomber, terrorism, nuclear device in the heart of the nation's capital.
It's no wonder that we're pessimistic. It's no wonder that people think that the world is getting worse. But perhaps that's not the case.
Perhaps we forget that we've only just begun.
Doing what's never been done before is intellectually seductive, whether or not we deem it practical.
What we're seeing is unfathomably new possibilities all of a sudden becoming available to us.
The future doesn't belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave.
You have to trust in something. Your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever.
We truly are living in an extraordinary time, and many people forget this.
So now technically your device is on. Can you tell? Can you hear me?
The yearning to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves.
Where did we come from? Are we alone in the universe? What is the future of the human race?
When you conduct those exercises, innovation follows just as day follows night.
We can do this. I know we can because we've done it before.
Stay hungry, stay foolish.
So everything that I talked about, I know it can be scary. It can, create this image of a doomsday. But I'm here to tell you that we're in charge. In these forums, in the conversations that are taking place in the rooms, around the tables, at dinners, around the bar, that's where the future is made. But we have to have courage to ask the hard questions, not to be satisfied with status quo, not to be satisfied with the answers that people expect from us, but to push those boundaries, to ask the hard questions, and be able to come up with answers that will benefit humanity and collaborate together to create that future. Because future can be what we imagine it to be here, and then we can work together at this action forum, make the pledges to make it come true. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Hello. Tennyson is a poet that we've often read in our readings, and he reminds us that we follow knowledge like a sinking star to its outermost bound. And then he goes on to affirm that we seek not to yield, and we seek to find. We have two individuals that are about to engage in an interview who know no boundaries, David Rubenstein and Jane Sun. I won't tell you too much about Jane because David will interview her and tell you everything you need to know. But in 2005, there was a small idea, and she grew that idea with passion and commitment and purpose. Let me tell you just a bit about the guy who's interviewing her. David Rubenstein knows no boundaries. He is committed to institutions like the Aspen Institute. He's committed to individuals. He was the co-founder of Carlyle, and he's a transformative leader in so many ways. David, we're very happy to have you with us. Jane, will you join us on stage? Thank you both for helping us to understand boundaries and our ability to pursue beyond them.
So, thank you. Before we start, I would just introductory comments or so, or questions. First, I want to acknowledge the presence of Linda Resnick, who is the Resnick Action Forum. She's the sponsor. Thank you. And my friend, and I worked in the White House with her a few years ago, former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright is here. Thank you, Madeleine. So how many people here are from the United States? Okay, how many are from, let's say, Asia? How many are from Latin America? Europe? Middle East? Africa? Central America? Okay. How many people did I miss? Anybody? Oh, okay. All right. Where, from where? Australia, sorry. New Zealand, anybody? No. Oh, okay, New Zealand. Okay. On the space theme, before we start, I would just say that, as was mentioned, this was the week of the 50th anniversary of the landing on the moon the first time, Apollo 11. And in one of my capacities in Washington, I had the opportunity a couple days ago to interview Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins, who were the two remaining astronauts who were alive. Neil Armstrong died a few years ago, unfortunately. And so I interviewed them at the Space Museum, and it's an incredible story, but just to ask, I'm curious if people know, I asked them, what, in the 50 years since you've come back from the moon, what is the most frequent question you're asked? And who can guess? How do you go to the bathroom in outer space? And Buzz Aldrin said he's got a pretty good answer to it, and it's a truthful one. And Michael Collins said the same thing, very, very carefully. So thank you very much for coming.
Thanks.
And let me tell you about Jane a moment. This is both a great story and, for me, a sad story. Here's what it is. Carlyle, a firm that I'm involved with, made an investment in China many years ago. And it was a venture capital kind of investment with a company called C-Trip. And C-Trip was an online travel company, and it was relatively young. And we put in money at, I guess, maybe a $100 million valuation or something like that. And we sold it for 4 or 5 times our money. Maybe the company was worth $500 million. So we made 3 or 4 times our money. We thought, how brilliant are we? The company is today worth $21 billion. And the CEO and the person ultimately most responsible for its rise is Jane. And let me tell you a little bit about her background, then we'll get into it in a moment. She grew up in China, went to Peking University for a while, and then when China was allowed to have students come to the United States under Deng Xiaoping after the Cultural Revolution, she became one of the first Chinese students to come to the United States, and she went to the University of Florida, got her degree there, and then went to work for a while in Silicon Valley, but then went back to China, got her law degree from the University of Peking Law School, and then she joined a small company called C-Trip, which has now become the largest company in China that does online travel, among other things we'll talk about. It's a company with about, I'd say, 45,000 employees, about revenue of about $5 billion, and a market capitalization traded on the NASDAQ of $21 billion. So I guess I sold too soon, right?
Thank you. You still have opportunities to invest.
If I invest today, well, can I make money double my money if I invest today?
I'm pretty sure our team will deliver.
Okay, all right, good. So let's talk a little bit about your background first, and then we'll get into what C-TRIP does and why everybody should use it, right?
Sure.
Everybody in China and outside of China.
Correct.
Okay, so you grew up after the Cultural Revolution.
Right.
And so what was it like when you were growing up? The wealth in China was not what it is today. Did you ever expect you would get an education in the United States?
Yeah, when I grew up, my generation actually is much more fortunate than my parents' generation and my grandmother's generation. For my grandmother, she was very smart, but she was born during the Second World War. Japan was invading, so she didn't have a chance to come to the States to study. And my parents are both chemistry engineers, very bright people, but again, they suffered from the Cultural Revolution. And they made 100 RMB per person, which is equivalent to $15 per month. Everyone from doctor to engineer to lady sweep the floor makes the same amount of.
So where did they spend their time during the Cultural Revolution?
They were in Shanghai, but my grandparents were sent to the countryside for labor reform.
And where were you born?
I was born in Shanghai also, but my generation was so fortunate because when I went to the elementary school, Cultural Revolution ended. Right. When I went to Peking University Law School, Deng Xiaoping opened the door, so I was able to come to study.
You went to the University of Peking, right?
Right.
Now, explain this to me. I never understood it. Why is it called Beijing, but the university is called Peking? Why can't they get it right? Either call the city Peking or the university Beijing. Why don't they do that?
Yeah, Peking University was partially funded by the USA. After the war between China and UK, all the other countries took the money back to their home country. But USA put the money in Peking University and invested.
So why don't they call it University of Beijing?
Yeah.
Since we call it Beijing City, why don't they use the same name?
Yeah, I think Peking gave people understanding of what it was founded before.
Okay.
It's one of the earlier first universities.
All right, so you went for a year there, and what did you want to be? Did you want to be a specialist in helping people travel? Is that what you wanted to do when you were in?
Not really, not really. At that time, I thought, wow, China is so big. We didn't have a legal system, and economy was so poor. I need to do something to change the country. So I studied economic law in Peking University Law
Okay,
School.
so after 1 year, was it 1 year?
1.5 years.
1.5 years. You got a chance to go to the United States, but you know, some people would say if you're in Shanghai, the University of Florida is not the best known university. Correct. So how did you happen to pick the University of Florida in Gainesville, of all places to go?
Sure, because China just opened the door.
Not anybody's a graduate of the University of Florida here. I didn't mean to offend them. It's a great place. But usually you don't hear a lot of people going from Beijing or Shanghai to Florida.
Yeah, so when China opened the door, very few students knows which school is the best in the United States. So my professor were very, very kind to me. They know my parents only made $15 per month. So they took me as their own daughter, and I lived with their family. So as a good Chinese girl, the Confucius teaching has always been when kids were young, parents took good care of the children. But when parents get older, children are supposed to take care of their parents. So I told my professor that when I grow older, when I'm able to, I want to take good care of them. But they said, oh, honey, you don't need to take good care of us. But instead, if you see international students who work so hard to be successful, if they need help, if you can help them in the same way we help you, we'll be very happy. So I was very, very touched because I have no blood relationship with them. So although I was making $3 in the restaurant as a minimum wage, $3 per hour, and I was penniless after I submit my tuition, I always had a big dream that someday, if I'm able to, I want to establish a scholarship named after my professors and help the international students. So I was so I was very glad.
Now, did you speak English as well as you do now when you went there?
No, I was speaking broken English at the time.
Okay, and was there a lot of wonderment from the University of Florida students about China then, because there weren't that many Chinese students, or did they treat you extremely well? Or what was the most frequently asked question you had?
they asked me, we were watching some movies, right? So they were asking, how the life looked like in China. At that time, China was so isolated. When I grew up, we were taught people in the USA were suffering. You are eating banana peels. So we're supposed to come to the USA to rescue you. But when I came here, my professor's family took me to the grocery store. I was looking at aisles of food, and I burst out crying because people in China just were suffering at that time.
Right, so you graduated, and then you went to work at Silicon Valley for a while?
That's correct.
And where did you work?
I work in the KPMG Silicon Valley office and Applied Materials Silicon Valley office.
Okay, and eventually you went back to China?
Right.
And why did you go back?
My husband at the time, he joined Yahoo in 1998 with Jerry Yang and David Philo and become 46th employee of the company. And in 2000, he got a phone call from a very good friend of ours from a very small company called Alibaba. That good friend is Jack Ma. So John became the first CTO of Alibaba. And 5 years later, I joined Ctrip as the first female CFO of the company.
And you are now, you were the CFO, and you were also the COO, and the president. Now you're the CEO. You're the only woman who's running an internet-related company in China. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So tell us about Ctrip. If I want to go travel from Shanghai to Beijing, why do I need Ctrip to help me do that?
Yeah, so Ctrip is a very technology-driven company. We have about 45,000 employees, 10,000 of which are engineers. We hire lots of people from the Silicon Valley. So for example, when you get on the buy tickets from Shanghai to Beijing, if there is a storm, the plane is canceled, we will automatically push a high-speed railway tickets to you. And we will tell the hotels, the customer will be late. Please hold for another 5 hours. He will be there. And we will tell their driver to pick them up 5 hours later at the train station rather than the air station.
You ever tried that in the United States? Does that work in the United States?
We love to make the travel much more pleasant for our customers.
So let me ask you, if I want to go from Shanghai to Beijing, why can't I just go on a website of, let's say, the airline and just buy the ticket myself? What advantage do I get by using Ctrip?
Sure. I think as the aggregator, we not only have air tickets, we have all the airlines, more than 300 airlines. We have thousands of the hotels listed. We have local tour operators. So the most expensive tour we sell costs about 200,000 USD per person per trip.
Where is that? Where does that go? The moon or where?
It's 80 days around the world.
80 days around the world?
Around the world. And guess how long did it take us to sell the packages?
A day?
Any other guesses? That's a good guess.
An hour?
1 hour, very
good.
1 hour? 10 minutes, 17 seconds. Yeah, so that tells you the buying power of the Chinese consumers. I hope all the US companies and Carlyle will benefit from the huge market in China.
I have some things I'd like to sell. Can I put it on your website? 17 seconds.
We love to. We love to.
So now, we've heard the concept of Tiger Mom. You know what that is?
Yeah, Amy Chow is a good friend.
Okay, so you have 2 daughters?
2 daughters.
And the first one is going to college, and she's not going to the University of Florida, right?
She is in Yale University.
You're going to Yale, okay. So, so were you a Tiger Mom? Did you make her work very hard and study, and how did she get into Yale?
Compared to Amy, I think I'm a bunny mother, not a tiger mother. We like the kids do whatever they like to. But I always think mothers are the best role models for children. So what I do if I'm not traveling is that I go to work very early, 6 or 7 o'clock, I'm in the office. And once 8 o'clock comes, my meetings is back to back, all the way until 7 o'clock in the evening. And then if I'm not traveling, I try to pack up all my work papers and bring it home, have dinner with the children, with my family. and read stories to them. At 9 o'clock, the kids goes to bed, and US market opens. Europe is still in session. My overseas call normally is scheduled in the evening.
But how do you fit that in? Because you're also running half marathons, right?
Right.
So how often do you do that?
Yeah, so in 2011, I ran a 4 marathon in Shanghai. 2012, John and I went to climb Kilimanjaro. 2013, we went to Himalaya to hike. So every year we try to do something that is challenging for us.
Have you tried Mount Everest yet? Or?
I'd love to. That's my lifetime goal.
So if I wanted to go to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, as opposed to what I prefer, flying over it, but if I wanted to climb it, how much would it cost me through C-Trip to organize that trip?
Yeah, depends on your level. Your level would be, VIP tour for you.
I would say not athletic would probably be my. All right. So, what is the biggest complaint you get from people when they use your travel service? Is there any complaint they ever make?
They do. A lot of time, things that we cannot control happens, right? So flight changes, claim, lots of claims. So what we do is, if it's not an issue, it's not caused by our customer. If it's an airline's issue, hotels issue, rental cost issue, we refund the customer upfront.
So I've noticed if you check into a hotel, let's suppose you check in at 11 o'clock at night, and by then everybody's coming that night, presumably has come, and you say, I don't have a reservation. Can you negotiate a price at that point? How much flexibility does the person at the desk have to negotiate the price?
So what we do is, for C-Trip, we have a pre-negotiated deal with the hotels. If for some reason hotels oversell their rooms, C-Trip customers will be guaranteed to have an upgrade. So that's the arrangement.
All right. So what is the most favorite place of people in China to visit in the United States?
Take a guess.
Aspen?
I was here in March to ski with my family, but I think Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
I didn't realize, I personally don't like gambling, but I didn't realize so many Chinese people enjoy visiting Las Vegas.
It's for the shows, I assume.
Yeah, for the shows and conference.
Okay, so today, do you have any competition in China?
Yeah, every year we have many players to come in, but I think in order for us to serve the customers well, rather than focusing on competition, we should always listen to the customers and focus on their need.
And today, you provide your services in the United States?
Yeah, we do. USA in a long-haul destination is always very popular.
But suppose I'm an American and I want to use your great services, but how do I do that? I live in the United States. I want to go from Los Angeles to New York.
Sure.
What do I do?
So we created a new brand outside of China. It's called Trip.com, and that's growing very well. I was talking
Well, why
to
is
Tom.
that better than, let's say, the other ones, Expedia or something like that? Why are you better?
Yeah, so for Trip.com, because we, again, aggregate so many products together, it's very convenient for customers. Not only we have air tickets, hotels, airport transfer, local activities, show tickets, restaurant, everything.
Okay, and what's the best value for money? What is the best value for money that you can offer people? Hotels, airplanes, where do you help people get the biggest discount?
I think for the packages, we do very well because hotels, airlines want to make sure their retail price is very well preserved. So what we do is to drive additional volume to the hotels and airlines, we do nice packages for them.
Now, in hotels, you stay in a lot of hotels, I assume. So they always tell me that they lose money on room service. How do you lose money on room service? They charge a lot of money for that. Do they really lose money on room service?
Tom knows better. Do they?
They do. Okay, and how they do? And how often are you traveling yourself outside of China?
Quite often. We made an investment in Skyscanner, which is the largest price comparison engine in Europe. Travel Fusion, which is the largest low-cost carrier in Europe, in London. So right after this meeting, I have to fly over there for board meetings.
Okay, and did you book your trip through C-Trip or?
Always. And I also use different sites just so our team knows what's the best price. practice in the industry.
Well, so if somebody goes on your website and they want to talk to somebody, a live person, they can do that, right?
Yeah. So our standard service is within 10 seconds after you make the call, a live person will answer the phone. Within 2 minutes, we need to finish a deal for our customer. If our sales representatives can finish a sentence by using 10 words, we will not let them to use 15 words. Why is that? Because the VIP customers like you and Tom, the time is very valuable for you. So we want to make sure it's very efficient. And if you are getting into a zone that is hit by natural disasters, such as a tsunami in Japan, a Las Vegas shooting, within a few minutes, news break, our team will reach out to you to talk with you, have hotels to open the lobbies, to give you hot meal, hot towel, and the very next day when the airlines resume their routes back to their home country, our customers will be prioritized to get back to their home country.
So how is the Chinese economy doing right now? Slowing down?
A little bit, but so far it's within 6 to 6.5% GDP growth.
That's the official rate, but you believe that official number?
For C-Trip, we target 50% of our customers are business travelers, more resilient, and another 50% are very affluent customers. So that segment is more.
What is the view in China of the tariffs that the United States has imposed and that China is paying?
I think in China, we always say, when you collaborate, you win. When you fight, you lose. The tariffs is a classic example that both countries will lose. I hope it can be eliminated.
Okay, and how popular is President Trump, let's say, in China? Is he popular?
I think each country has, people, you respect people's will to elect a president. But I think China and the US are the two largest economy. We should really focus and maximize our shared interest and understand each other's difference in the history and be mutually respectful for each other.
And is there antagonism towards the United States now in China because of the tariffs or not?
We have 10 China fellows this year coming all the way from China to here. I think in Chinese, the USA is translated into Chinese as the beautiful country. Every parent, if they have the financial bandwidth, their dream is to send their kids to study and learn from the USA. So I hope both countries will acknowledge and realize the benefits.
Now, in your company, you've been very focused on helping women.
Yes.
And you have a program where you let women freeze their eggs and you pay for that?
Right.
Can you explain why you're so friendly towards women and your rationale? How many women do you have as a percentage of your employees?
Sure. In China, we used to have this crazy policy called the one-child policy, and C-Trip stand against it. So when our employee had to pay a penalty for having the second and third child, I would write a check and for the employees to pay for the penalty.
All right.
And under the leadership of our chairman, now the government was very wise to reverse that policy. Now we are allowed to have more children. However, I realize lots of females now are getting PhDs, master's degrees overseas. So when they return, they struggle a little bit between having children, having family, having career. So what we said is, if you decide to have more options, if you decide to have your egg freezed, our company will support you by paying for the cost.
Right. So can you make us feel better? You seem like you're so perfect. Everything is working perfectly. Can you tell us something you failed at? Have you ever done something that didn't work out? Just something make us feel better.
Every day. When I always go down to the call center to listen to customers complain. Every day when I listen to it, I was like, we can do better. So yeah, I think in order to lead a team of average 26 years old, you have to be very positive. And although we have so many challenges every day, either there is a bomb in Sri Lanka, or earthquake in Nepal, or tsunami in Japan, so it's lots of stress. But for me, it's very important as the leader, I have to be the champion to support our customers, support our employees.
All right, so that isn't exactly what I had in mind, but okay. All right, so how much longer are you going to do this? I mean, you're done so well. You've made a lot of money for, I presume, your shareholders yourself. How many more years do you want to do this? Have you thought about going to government or the higher calling of private equity or something like that?
You are a great role model. You and Tom are great role model for me. I think, I feel so blessed for the opportunity for our generation, for the opportunity. I was born in China, but work and study in the USA for almost 20 years. So for me, much is given, much is expected. I very much like to contribute to what I learned in the USA and serve as a good bridge between China and the rest of the world.
Okay, and so you are going to stay where you are now at your company. You're not going to start another company, be CEO of something else. You're not going to go run China or anything like that.
Now, I think we still have such a great potential for our company to grow.
If I had some extra money and I wanted to invest in China, where should I invest?
14 years ago, when I made a switch from USA to China, I asked myself 3 questions. First of all, should I spend the next 15 years in the USA or in China? And I thought my background and bilingual, bicultural skills can better utilized in China as well as in the USA to be a good bridge. The second question I ask myself is that if you are going to go back to China, which industry is the best? And I feel travel not only brings the pleasure to the people, but also serve as a diplomatic way to bring people together and promote global understanding and global culture, particularly in today's environment.
So have you ever met Xi Jinping?
I attended some meetings with
And you give him any advice? Or does
I
he ever
think,
use your service, do you know? Or?
I love for our president to try our service. I think all the government officers try very hard also to reach out to the world. China still has a long way to go, but compared to 40 years ago when I grew up, it has made tremendous, not only in the economic field, but also in academic. I remember when I was in college, we couldn't say anything that is negative. But now, I'm here having a speech with you, which is a great progress. In the Western country, it's nothing. But for a Chinese people, that's a huge progress the country has made.
So did your parents live to see your success?
My parents, are touring around somewhere in the USA and Canada now.
Really?
Yes.
And are they using C-Trip to do their tour?
Yes, yes.
And have they told you what a great daughter you've been and how proud they are of you? They tell you that very much?
Thank you. My father is a good customer for C-Trip. Every time he uses our service, he will come back with a report on the items we can improve.
Does he get a discount or anything?
We charge him a premium.
Premium? Okay, well, this is a very interesting story, and my big regret is 2 things. One, I didn't hold on to our stock there, and I didn't tell the other part of the story. The CEO of this company, who, when we made our investment, was a senior officer was Neil Shen.
Neil Shen.
Neil Shen left C-Trip a number of years ago, and I thought I'd never hear from him again. He's now the most famous venture capital investor in China, and he's so successful, he not only runs Sequoia China, he now runs all of Sequoia in the United States as well. And I wish I had invested with him when he left. But so you tell me right now I should buy your stock because it's going to double in the next year or so, right?
Not 1 year, but in the long term, I'm sure the travel will grow, C-Trip's market share will grow.
But in the long term, I'll be dead. I'm looking about the next year or so. But okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, but David, I think before we leave the stage, I want to express the great gratitude to you on behalf of China Fellowship.
Okay, thank you.
Your generous contribution to China Fellowship enables us to come to the States, talk to all the other fellows from the other countries, and we hope we can live up to your expectation, be a good bridge between China and the USA.
Thank you, but you sent me a picture. We met 2 years ago here.
That's right.
And then you sent me a picture the other day, or yesterday, about our meeting 2 years ago, and I realized how much older I look in those 2 years. So please don't send me any more pictures, because it just depresses me. But thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, David.
Hello. I feel like I just myself won an X Prize or maybe a Resnick Prize because I've been given the very great honor of introducing 2 videos with the poem in between to honor Ben Dunlap, who many of you know, Ben or Bernie if you're a Liberty Fellow. To know Ben is to love him very dearly. I do recognize that some of you may not know who Ben Dunlap is. He was one of our original moderators in the Henry Crown program, a classicist, just literally one of the wisest, kindest, funniest people one could ever meet. I'm not going to go through his whole bio because it would take too long. So I'm going to do a very Aspen thing and give you a brief snapshot through a text-based reading module. There was a short story we read during my year as a Henry Crown Fellow written by Walter von Tilburg Clark called The Portable Phonograph. And it opens in a scene of total desolation after a great war. And the very few remaining survivors are huddled around a fire in a dark cave. It's an excellent story. You should read it. But I'm going to cut to the ending where my class discussed, what is it that we would take into Armageddon when civilization had been destroyed and all hope lost. And some people said they would bring photographs to remember. Some people said tools and solar panels to try to rebuild. Some of us said we'd want to bring the great books and music. But as I stand here today, I have a more efficient answer. If I had to carry one thing into Armageddon, I would bring this man.
The Aspen Institute was founded by Jedi of another generation, Schweitzer, Pepke, Henry Crown, in the wake of a worldwide cataclysm. They were convinced that ideas matter, not dogma or ideology, but the thrust of a freely inquiring mind in consort with other minds. They can't be said to have routed the powers of darkness, but they kept the ideal alive. And that ideal was precisely the same as the one Keith Berwick espoused, which he had learned from O'Toole, and O'Toole from Adler, and Adler from others, in turn from others, all the way back to Aristotle. In the aftermath of the long Cold War that followed that initial conclave in 1949, the Berlin Wall was demolished and the Henry Crown Fellowship created, bringing with it a whole new roster of recruits for what was, in effect, a once-and-future dream of a legion to change the world. That is, of course, a synoptic account of our intergalactic host, the Praetorian Guard of those who would change the world, those whose idea of happiness is productive self-fulfillment for themselves and for everyone else, whose notion of justice is a good life lived by all. It goes without saying that every now and then one of us will lose his saber, sometimes in mortifying ways. But then it's equally true that life has many turns, an epic has many sequels, the river keeps on flowing. And what is my Yoda-like message tonight? As I stepped once again into this turbulent current, I come before you bearing Aristotle in this hand and Heraclitus in that, Think of it as adding a dash of one to flavor the other, if you will, a bit of Ben to sweeten the Mortimer. Let me tell you what else that pre-Socratic oracular Heraclitus has to say. It isn't changing that things find purpose. The way up and the way down are one and the same. If you don't expect the unexpected, you will never find it. The sun is new each day. So here we are then, Heraclitus, tossed together in this promiscuous heap with you and Aristotle, with Lester, Francis, and Muriel, Adler, Berwick, Battle, Reiling, Isaacson, on and on, the numberless ranks of AGLN knights increasing with each passing year. For the moment, ensconced once again in the warm cocoon of our mothership, we schmooze. In a day or two, we disperse to continue the fight for truth and justice, happiness, as the word is spread from nation to nation and star to star. March on and on, you intergalactic army of the just. You have nothing to lose but your shirts. Thank you very much.
I did briefly consider trying to get one of those toy lightsabers, but I thought maybe that might be a bit much. Ben was not just a very dear moderator, he was also my project mentor. And some years ago, he invited me to co-moderate a session, an alumni seminar with him in Greece. And a number of the fellows that came on that wonderful journey with us are here. I know that they will remember, as I do, Ben glowing like an Olympian god with joy at being able to share Homer and Heraclitus and Aristotle and Plato and Kaffi with all of us. And he also glowed with the very great joy of being able to share that time together with his incredible wife, Anne. Anne, earlier this year, passed beyond the boundary of this life to something beyond. When I got the news, I did what I do when I don't know what else to do. I wrote a poem, which I'm going to share with you now. It's Anne's poem. It's also Ben's poem. And I hope you'll take some of it into yourself. The title comes from Goethe. Were the eye not sun-like, the sun's light it could not see, which speaks to the fact that perception is itself a creative act. Were the eye not sun-like, in memory of Anne Dunlap. I end another week in avenues that stretch to sunset, a routine of small devotions. I will keep loving this town, this life, this moment. Some tasks are effortless, but it is useful to set intentions. Awareness is additive, exponentially. I recognize that I brighten in the contours of sound and color, yet falter in the rigor of detail. I'll say, here is a translucent tunnel. The journey to arrive will not be described. You're dropped in. I will whisper, unmakeable. Will you go? The repetition of a word, like deeper, can cause an instinctive rush. The tongue is a tuning fork. Beneath the skin, conductivity. These are the things you know because your earth body is electric. How to bend at the knees and open your chest, that the shoulder closest to the wave is everything. Fate being one muscle. You must get square with fear. Things your water body knows. We become what we lose. We must yield what we grow. The heart is a tide pool, high and low. Look from the shore to the flower to the star. then back again. People mold people exponentially. My friend Ben married Anne 55 years ago. Theirs was a rare excitement. In Greece, we rode the ferry from Piraeus to Idra together, her laughter an unsinkable sun. Johann Sebastian Bach composed 6 works for solo violin shortly after the death of his wife. His cryptic title, Say Solo, sounds like 6 solos, but translates as You Are Alone. His chaconne for D minor belongs to the final movement of the second partita. From within the lament of a descending chromatic bass begin the double stops, 2 strings played at once. The sound is not love, it is the memory of love. Stars carry their own memories, the light of past incandescence. We need stars in our eyes to see them. What we call shooting stars aren't stars at all, but the dustfall of meteors, astral spindrift like the spray of a cresting wave. It is wise to practice ways of falling. Sometimes you need to use that shoulder to punch through and get clear, arch like a rainbow that is really a sphere, then go again. The world is a tide pool, shallow and rocky, in turns submerged and scorched, battered by wind and prevailing current. I think barnacles and starfish are very brave. We have things to learn from their liminal bodies. Thank you. Ben again.
Hi, I'm Ben Dunlap, and I am sending greetings and good vibes to the intergalactic army of the just. That's a phrase I used for the first time at the very first Aspen Forum when I stood on stage and looked out over the group of fellows, and I thought, my gosh, they look exactly like the Jedi Knights gathered at the end of the first Star Wars movie. And as someone might have told you, I am addressing you now from a galaxy far, far away, a place where it's possible for me to go backwards and forwards in time. I can replay events from the past as if in Kurt Vonnegut's Tralfamadorian Time, or even more like having a cosmic Netflix subscription in which I can watch over and over every performance of Antigone that I have seen over the past 30 years. That would be beginning at a time before there even was an intergalactic army of the just, when Keith and Skip and I were just hitting our stride in Aspen, and Peter and Eric and Tommy still seemed wet behind the ears, and the rest of you were in the offing as brilliant new recruits for the army of the just, with names like Tanya and Tamsin, and, well, I could go on citing your names as if in a Homeric roll call, but suffice it to say that using a word intergalactic for the fellowship seems a lot more plausible now that you literally are a worldwide network. And when 2 of your number are among the very serious candidates to become the next president of the United States. Now, granted, where I'm addressing you from, where I live at the moment, a horse farm without any horses in the foothills of Appalachia is very far from that kind of action. But exercising my Tralfamadorian prerogative, I really do revisit so many of the discussions we've had over the years around the seminar table, remembering things you've said and treasuring our friendship. And I especially want to thank those of you who wrote to me after my wife's death a few months ago. And Tamsin, your poem for Anne is so beautiful. She would really have loved it. As a matter of fact, I'm doing a lot of writing now myself, and when in those sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, often things I thought I'd forgotten forever come back to mind. As for instance, a couple of nights ago, I suddenly remembered a one-act play that I wrote in high school That would have been back in 1954. And in that performance, near the very end, as the actors, who were, of course, my friends and fellow students, stood on the stage in a kind of frozen symbolic tableau, I spoke through an offstage mic in a voice that sounded like something out of the Twilight Zone, saying, "The dreamer dies, but never dies the dream." It wasn't my line. I picked it up somewhere or another. And in fact, it's not even very great poetry, but it's a compelling idea if there's somehow a way to make it true. And it strikes me now that this situation in which I address you via video is so close to the situation back in 1954 that I really ought to repeat the line one more time. The dreamer dies, but never dies the dream. And I realize that that really is my message for you. You are the dreamers and you are the doers. And it gives me great hope when I think how desperately your worlds and mine need the dream that you share. It gives me great hope. And it is with such hope that I join with Keith and Skip in saluting you now at this Action Forum. Or, as the people in my world used to say, Ave atque vale, which is Latin, of course, and it means hail and may you fare well.
For any of you who've been dreaming of lunch, it's now served.